these health insurance plans, like I talked about earlier, like they have an incentive for the price to go up, but in year they can only make 15%. So if you charge you $1,000, they have to spend $850 on medical bills, and they can keep the remaining 15%. But the problem is that if they get to 86% are medical bills and 87% are medical bills, which means your profit is going down, now they have an incentive to decline your bills to get back to maximizing their profit of that 15%. And so you're screwed in the short term because they are trying to profit maximize for the year. They're also screwed for the long term because they actually want your bills to go up over time. And so the incentives are totally screwed up in that situation. And so for us, we're just a subscription fee. Like you just pay $60 a month to be a part of our community. And so the more community members we get in, the more money we make. And so I want to drive down healthcare costs, as opposed to let costs go up. If I can drive down that cost, then I get more people into the community. We released something on X yesterday. Our costs in 2025 were 13, I think it was 13, 12 or 13% less than in 2024.
Wow.
And my headline was healthcare should be deflationary, which blows people's minds, but it should be. Healthcare should be deflationary, not inflationary. And so we're actually doing that. We're seeing bills go down over time through Crowd Health. And so why is that? Because we're finding better doctors who are willing to take a fair price. They're really high quality, but they've exited the system and they are willing to take a lower price if you pay them directly, so they don't have to do all this billing shenanigans. We're negotiating a lot better. And so, and we have some awesome people who are a part of the community who are willing to work with us to find a really fair price, great quality of doctor. And so we're being able to drive costs down by doing these things. So it's just introducing economics, fair market economics into, healthcare, which is pretty much non-existent. And we're getting better and better and better at it as we, proceed into our kind of little young life here as a corporation. We've only been around for 4.5 years. So we're learning as we go. We're getting better. And I think that we'll see, more declines next year is my guess.
That's in fiat terms, just for all you Bitcoiners out there.
Fiat terms, exactly.
They're going down, which, yeah, I mean, that's amazing. And to your point, it should be, because if technology is, again, getting better, the healthcare costs should be going down as well. So it just blows your mind.
All technology declines over time, except anything related to healthcare. Those technologies always increase with price. Isn't that funny? Like anything that the government touches goes up. I mean, I'm sure you've seen that graph where it's like, increases inflation by sector. And it's like all the sectors that the government touches, healthcare, education, those types of things, those things are going up and to the right. Everything else is going down. Cell phones, TVs, cars, everything else is actually deflating. All other technologies are deflating except healthcare, which is a really interesting thing. And it's because we ultimately we're not paying for it. We're not paying for it. The government's paying for it, and so that's just what happens when the government, pays for things. Ultimately the medical industrial complex is a lot like, the military industrial complex, in that everything is kind of a cost plus system. And so, when you have a cost plus system, which basically means you tell us how much it costs and we'll give you some profit on top of that, which I just kind of explained happens with health plans. You want the cost to rise, and so that's the other thing that costs are rising is the military. So technology is deflationary except when the government touches it.
It's insane. You just open up another one of those silos. The military, that's the one we had. What's one of them we hadn't touched yet?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so
I have to be careful. I had my first death threat about 2 months ago.
Really?
So I had a guy in a black car that was stopping outside of my house, and my wife kept catching him, and so was trying to run out there to get his license plate. Couldn't get it, and then we got a note that says, "I'm going to effing kill you all." And so and the police, fortunately were able to get this guy, but who had an ideological difference with our company. I don't know. They wouldn't tell me what that meant, other than my guess is there's some medical industrial complex component to this. And so, it's like, if you try and go and change some of these cartels, they will come after you. And, I don't know if that was 100% it or not. That's maybe I'm imagining things, but, it was a scary situation when you have cops in your house, and your 7 and your 9-year-old are sitting there being like, why are cops in my house? And so it's a pretty scary thing, but I think that means we're doing something impactful.
Well, Godspeed to you, Andy, because it's, the more people that do stuff like this and do stand and do say something, vote with their wallet, vote with their mouth, vote with their feet, all these things, the faster this adoption can happen, and the more we can educate people, and the less this happens, because this only happens, as you well know, to divide and conquer, right? To intimidate people, whatever. It's the old Italian way, which is, again, people are getting a real lesson in BBB. But it's my wife's Italian uncle told me years ago: bullshit, bribery, and blackmail. That's how business operates. And so take it from the Italian, and we're seeing that, right? Like this is how the playbook works in this old legacy complex, fiat complex. So walk us through the negotiation part, because there's kind of twofold of how do costs come down, right? So we talk a lot about costs coming down and stuff like that. So I'm sure people are wondering, like, well, how are the costs actually coming down for you guys? Because there's an element of when someone goes in and says, hey, I'm self-pay or something, to that effect. And then also what you guys are doing, say it's a big thing. So I'd love for you to kind of walk through those two angles.
When you go into the hospital, you just say I'm self-pay, and what they'll do is they'll send you bills afterwards. And so when you get those bills, you just take the bills, you take a picture of them, you upload them to our app, and then we make sure we have all the bills, and then we actually have attorneys help us do some of that negotiation. So an attorney on your behalf will call the hospital and say, hey, this bill is egregious and stupid, and you should knock it down significantly. By the way, there's 3 or 4 errors in this, and if you did 3 or 4 errors in this, how many errors do you have in your billing system? How many times have you done this before? And ultimately, the hospitals are kind of like, okay, let's negotiate a fair price. And so we're trying to get them a fair price for their services, because we don't want the hospitals to go down. We want to give them a fair price, but without being price gouged. And so we've learned some tactics over the last 3 or 4 years that have helped us get these bills down significantly. We've got one going on right now where this very well-known hospital is charging ridiculous prices to one of our members. And so we are engaging the media to tell them about this. And so, once a reporter calls the hospital and says, hey, I heard you price gouge somebody, I want to do a story on it, things change quickly. The tune changes. And so, a lot of these hospitals feel like they're entitled to charge whatever they want for these things. I mean, unfortunately, I was in the hospital a couple of years ago, and I had a bag of saline solution. I think it was 1,000 milliliters, which is like a bag that's, about the size, that I can buy on Amazon for $8, and they charge me $5,000 for it. And so that's quite an upcharge. And so I fought it, and ultimately got that waived. But, if you don't know what you're doing, then you're going to be taken by these hospitals. And so we know what we're doing, and we've got now 28,000 or 30,000, something like that, bills that we've done this for. And so we know what the tactics are to get these hospitals to respond. And that's why we're getting better and better and better at this. And so I don't think there's anybody better than us in getting these bills negotiated down. And as a result of that, we don't have to ask the community for as much. And therefore, the costs are coming down for the community as opposed to going up. So, that's really our bread and butter is, negotiations is our game. I like to say we're the Michael Jordan of hospital bill negotiations, because we're really good at it.
If you like that clip, then you definitely got to check out this next spicy clip. I think you're really going to like it. Come on, check it out. But if you want the full version, the full interview, then check that out over here. Come on, do it. I'll see you in there.